All right, welcome back to the Post School Podcast. As you can see, I have revamped the studio. A few little additions. Went to Kmart yesterday and thought, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a proper studio because the feedback I got from the first few solo eps is that it's a bit boring. And now that I'm posting these on YouTube, I should probably make them not so boring. So, as you can see, we've got a beautiful new studio. I'm still trying to figure out what to put over there. Currently it's just a white poster with some financial advice words. But if you've got any suggestions, let me know because I want to put maybe a cool poster, painting, something like that up there. Any ideas, let me know on Instagram or comment wherever you're watching this, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can comment on all of them. And while you're at it, give the show a little rating. It goes a long way in helping me out and helping get this out to more people. But enough of that. Today, we're here to talk about that feeling of having it all figured out. You see all your friends, now we're in our mid-20s, some are getting married, some are having kids, some have finished uni and they've got a really good, high-paying, stable job. Others are traveling the world. Some have bought investment properties or the house they live in. Some have moved out of home, some haven't. And we're stuck with this feeling of, why does everyone else seem to have it all figured out? Why don't I have it figured out? And I'd love to know where this pressure came from. I mean, I get it. I know why it's there, but I'd love to know if it's been around forever, if it's just something that we feel more now because of social media and everything that we see online. But the point is, today I want to dive into that feeling of having it figured out when we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people and wondering why we're not as complete as those people are. Questioning every move we make, every decision we make, wondering, am I ever going to get to that point of having it figured out, and how do I get there? So I think so much of this issue stems from expectations, right? We go through high school and we're made to believe that by a certain point in our life, we should have X and Y achievements or X and Y job or whatever it is. And, we go through school thinking, okay, by 25, I want to have this job. And by 30, I want to have 2 kids and a husband or a wife that I love. And by my mid-30s, I want to have a home that I own or a mortgage that I'm paying off at least and a stable income. And we start to look at life like a bunch of checkpoints. We start to look at these ages and associate them with certain milestones or achievements or stages of life. But the reality is, life doesn't really pan out that way. And some people achieve those things much sooner than what they probably thought, much sooner than what you thought. And then you start to look at your own idea of how life should play out and start questioning it. Not to mention the fact that you might hit those ages and not get the milestones that you were sort of working towards. And then we question it again. So how do we go about not letting this feeling ruin our 20s? Because I find that so many of us, myself included, make decisions based on this ideal of, okay, this is the person I thought I was going to be at this age, so this is the decision that I should make because of that person I thought I was going to be. But I don't think that's the way to live. I think we should be making decisions based on who we want to become. Sure, it's important to plan for the future, but also based on who we are now. The person, when you were 15, the person you thought you'd be at 24, 25, is probably much different to the person you actually are at 24, 25. So I think it's really important that we're making decisions every day based on the person that we are now with our current idea of what our future version may look like. But that's allowed to change, and it will change. And there are plenty of things that you're going to plan to achieve that you won't achieve, or that you'll achieve many years down the line or much sooner than you thought. So I think there are 3 main parts to this question. You've got the career section. I thought I'd have this degree and this job by this age. You've got the relationships and life section. I thought I'd have found my forever person and have kids by this age. And then you've got the money side of it. I thought I'd own this or have this much in savings or be able to do this. When typically, so many of us in our 20s have the job that we didn't think we'd have, or we have a degree that we're not using. We have been in long-term relationships or not been in relationships and are now single. And we're living pretty much paycheck to paycheck, figuring out how the real world works, trying to cover rents and groceries and cars and phones and all the rest of it without really saving much. And I think that's really hard because our expectation was to have those three things sorted by 25. I know that was my expectation. I thought for sure by 25 I'd have made my first mil and the rest was going to be easy. And I think when we're young and we think about our mid-20s, that seems like proper adulting, right? But I'm realizing now in my mid-20s that the first 6-7 years of your 20s is really just a warm-up. You're figuring out how the real world works. And then I think once you figure all that out and you've made the mistakes and you've lived paycheck to paycheck and you've quit jobs and you've left relationships and you've done all of those things, only then can you start to piece together what the future could look like for you. So I think we've got to reframe this idea of our 20s being the prime time. Our 20s should be about exploration and fun and enjoyment and failure and making mistakes and doing dumb things. And I think that's the way that we get closer to this idea of figuring it out. I think the only way to actually figure it out is to figure out what it's not. And that's by doing. You have to do things. You have to take risks. You have to try new things and be okay to fail and be okay to make silly mistakes that you regret or look back on and laugh at or you embarrass yourself. But the idea that we're going to have one path and get to every single milestone that we thought we'd get to at a certain point within our 20s is bullshit. It's not going to happen. And obviously we have to talk about social media here because it plays a massive role in these expectations. You know, we've grown through high school. Most of us had a phone and social media all through high school. And especially now, we're constantly fed images and videos of people achieving these things. You know, your friend from high school just bought his first house. He's posted that on Instagram and it makes you feel like, shit, why aren't I there yet? Or a girl you knew in high school just got pregnant with a man that she loves deeply. And you're thinking, wow, I've never felt so single in my life. Or you've got a friend who's traveling the world and somehow making money while they're doing it and haven't been home for 2 years. And you're thinking, how can they do that? Why am I miserable going to work Monday through Friday every week when this person's out there living their life? You know, all of these things that we see online, it's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking I should have all of them. But in reality, if you break that down, right, this is the way that I try and look at it. What you see on social media, we all know it's a highlight reel. I'm not going to give you that cliche bullshit. We know it's a highlight reel. But what we forget is that what one person posts is their one experience. What another person posts is their one experience. We typically combine everything that we see on social media as one experience, but that's not the case. They're all individual. Your friend who's in Europe right now is not living the same life as your friend who just bought a house. And he's not living the same life as your friend who just got married and is having a kid in 6 months. They're separate, but we look at that like we should have all of them. We should be traveling. We should be owning a property. We should be in a relationship, getting married, having a kid. But each of those are separate. The person who's traveling is not the person who's getting married and having a kid. So I think it's really important to separate those experiences when we see them on Instagram. If you look at your own life, I'm sure you've got one of those aspects figured out, or at least somewhat in control. For instance, when I was traveling, I had the travel side figured out. I was loving it. I was really enjoying being overseas. And of course I had my down moments. I talked about that in last week's episodes. But the point is, I was traveling and making money overseas. And so many would look at that like, wow, he's got it figured out. He's living the dream. But then I looked at my finances and I thought, I don't have much money. I'm making money, but I'm spending it just as quick. And now I'm back home. I'm living with my parents. I moved back without a car. And it felt like I'd taken a million steps back. But then I look at it again in this individualized way and I think, well, sure, I don't have the travel side anymore, but I figured out that I actually want peace and structure to my life. And now I've got the car, I've got routine, I'm making consistent income, I'm building up my future. I'm going to the gym often. I'm happy with where my body's at. See, I think we just forget to take into account the whole picture. I don't think we're ever going to have it all figured out all at once. I think life is about balancing these things, right? You have one part of your life that you're really happy with, and then you've got another part of your life that you're not so happy with. So the goal is to change some things that will balance that out. Start changing ways that you do things or some of your habits that will make the part that you're not so happy with a little less unhappy, even if that costs a little bit of happiness from this side. I think the goal is to just slowly work on things so that you can compound over time and create a life that you are fulfilled with. To me, that's the goal. Having it figured out means you wake up each day and you're happy. You're excited about the day. Now, that day might not mean you flying around on a private jet, touring the world. It could simply mean you waking up and going into the office to do a job that you enjoy, and then coming home at the end of the day to do the thing that you want to do after work, whether that's with your wife and kids, or it's by yourself going for an afternoon walk, or swinging a golf club on a golf course. It's really important that we reframe this concept of having it figured out from doing it in the way that we see on social media, assuming we should have all of those things all at once, and just reframing that to, what are the parts of my life that I'm happy with? I'm going to keep doing those. What are the parts of my life that I'm unhappy with? How do I stop doing them or change them for things that will make me more happy? I think at the end of the day, that's what having it figured out actually means. I know I touched on it just before, that when I left Bali, I was coming home after 2.5 years of living in a 2-bedroom villa with my girlfriend. We had a pool, we raised puppies, we didn't do all of our own cooking. We ate out a lot because it was Bali, but we did all of our own washing. We also had a maid. I sound like such a posh twat right now. Point is, I lived on my own, and then I was coming back home to Australia to move back in with my parents, no car, not the same freedoms that I had, and I felt a lot of shame around that, frustration of how have I ended up here? I was on this trajectory of going from at home to out of home, living with a girlfriend overseas, and then somehow I've gone all the way back down again. And that rocked me a bit. At 24, I thought I'd have made my first meal and have everything figured out. But that's not the case. I don't have it all figured out. I'm still figuring it out. But I think the biggest realization for me when I got home is that it's fine. Everyone takes steps back. You have to take steps back sometimes to go forward. And the difference is, I'm not going back to where I was at an even playing field. I'm going back to where I was, sure, situationally, but not mentally. I've had these experiences, I've grown in these ways, and I've learned so much about myself and what I want out of my future that sure, the situation has reverted and I'm back at home and I don't have a car, but I'm not thinking in the same way I was when I was 18 and I bought my first car and I was at home. I'm thinking in a completely different way, and I have the ability and the skills to progress much quicker than I could at that stage. Give it 3 to 6 months, I could move out and sustain myself and do a bloody good job. I'm probably not going to do that because I want to save up a little bit of money to put myself ahead on a financial point, because that's an area of my life that I've decided now I want to focus more on and start figuring it out in a sense. But I know to do that, the travel side will feel less figured out and I'll have to compromise there. So I think it just comes back to this idea of you're running your own race. Everyone is doing their thing. They're on their path. You can't rush any milestone. You can't tie age to success or accomplishments, because all that is going to do is set you up to fail. If you reach an age that you thought you were going to achieve something at, and you haven't achieved it, you will feel like a failure. You will forget to look at all of the things that you're doing well and that you have figured out, and all the progress you've made since you set that goal or thought that that milestone made sense at that age, and you'll disregard all of it because you didn't hit the achievement at the age you thought you would. And I just think that's a stupid way to live. And that's not a dig at you. I'm just trying to explain it as I see it. I think it's important to have goals and set milestones and tie them to a certain stage of life. But the expectation can't be, if I don't do that, I'm not doing life right. The expectation has to be, I would love to achieve this thing by this age or at this time. But if it doesn't happen, it wasn't meant to be. And I trust in myself that I can continue to make it work and continue to move forward despite not achieving that thing. I think one of the most important concepts to reframe this whole situation of having it figured out is to understand the idea of progress over perfection. And I know it's a buzzword. Everyone talks about this progress over perfection. But what does that actually mean? What does progress over perfection mean? The way that I look at it is a successful life is many, many, many small moments of progress added up over time. That's what creates success. Now, it's easy to have a perfect plan and think, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, by step 10, I'll be exactly where I want to be. But in so many cases, you might hit step 3 or 4, and then something will happen and it's going to put you back at 2, 3 steps. Or something will happen and it's going to add another few steps on. So I think the goal is to have a plan, sure. I'm not saying don't have a plan, because I think we need a plan for direction. But make it a flexible plan. If you do nothing today other than one small thing that makes you feel like you have progressed slightly more than you did yesterday, that's a successful day. I think the scariest thing in the world is staying still. And it's important to have the goals and work towards those things, but understand that it might take you way longer than you thought it would. Or it could happen way quicker than you thought it would. Or it might not happen at all. Or you'll do the thing and you'll absolutely hate the way that it made you feel by doing it. Or you'll hate how long it took. Or you'll do the thing and you'll actually along the way realize that this isn't what I want. And you'll pivot. And would your younger self look at you thinking that as a failure? I don't think so. So I think the point is to make small decisions every day that are putting you towards the thing that you want in your future. Knowing full well that the thing might change, you might do it sooner than you thought, you might never do it at all, or it could take a long time. And you have to be okay with that. So I guess the practical reframe behind that is, instead of asking, am I behind? It should be, what progress have I made today? Am I pushing forward? Because there's no such thing as behind. Behind what? Behind who? What makes you think that your version of life or your path is comparative to someone else's path? They've had a completely different life to you, with different resources, different family, different experiences. How can you compare your path to that? It's completely separate. So I think we're all on our own path. Life is an individual experience with some common emotions and common experiences throughout it. But at the end of the day, life is individual. We create community to feel like we're not so alone. But at the end of the day, you are the only one inside your head 100% of the time. No one else is up there. Some people might live rent-free for a little bit. And some people might sway your thoughts. But at the end of the day, your life is yours only. And every single person that you meet in your life technically is disposable. And I don't mean that in the way of just get rid of people. I mean that in everyone's going to die. And you are fully and solely responsible for your happiness. So if you don't go about life thinking that my job is to progress towards a version of life that I'm happy with and that fulfills me, then I see that as a wasted life, wasted potential. So, to reframe, am I behind, into what progress have I made today? I think that's the easiest and quickest way to stop comparing your own path to someone else's path. Your goal every day, every week, every month, every year, every decade is to progress forward. Move towards a vision of your life that you think will fulfill you. And as soon as you realize that that vision no longer serves you or won't fulfill you, change path, make new actions, go towards a new goal or a new vision. I love Matthew McConaughey's quote on this. Now, I think he said it at a university speech quite a few years ago, or maybe it was an awards acceptance speech. Anyway, someone went up to Matthew McConaughey and said, "Who's your hero?" And he said, "I'm not sure. Let me think about that. I'll get back to you." And then he saw this guy again in a week's time and he said, "Who's your hero?" And Matthew McConaughey said, "It's me in 10 years' time." And I absolutely love that, because then in 10 years' time, this guy asked Matthew McConaughey, "Who's your hero?" And he said, "It's me in 10 years' time." See, life as a goal, this idea of success that we have, will always be unattainable. If you actually achieve the version of your life that you think you'll be done, you'll be happy, you'll never want to make any changes, that's the end of your life. That's the end of life. The whole point of life is to progress and move forward and pivot and try things and continue developing and growing as a human, as a society. So this idea of it's important to have a goal, it's important to have a hero, whether that's yourself in 10 years, a famous person, it doesn't matter. It can be as deep or as shallow as you like. But you have to understand that your goals will shift. Your vision will change. And that's okay. That's what keeps life exciting. So this idea of ever having it all figured out is ludicrous. The point is, life is about figuring it out. You continue to figure it out constantly. And certain parts click and certain parts don't. Certain things you'll think you've figured out, and then circumstances will change, and all of a sudden that part of your life that was stable is now in absolute chaos. Life is a balancing act, and we have to continue to push towards this goal or this vision of the future that we think we like, or the thing that we think we want. But we have to be equally okay and accept the fact that we'll probably never figure it out. And only then do you truly feel fulfilled and happy today, because you realize that all we have is today. There is nothing else to figure out other than what can I do today that will make me happy and push me towards a version of my future that I'm happy with. That's the way that I see it. All right, I absolutely loved talking about that. As you can see, this is something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about and I'm very passionate about sharing with everyone. And I know I talk to you a lot, right? This podcast is, at the end of the day, a podcast for you to listen to. But I say all of these things to remind myself of it as well. It's not actually about you, it's about us. You know, we are in our 20s figuring this stuff out. And everything that I talk about on here, and the reason I document it, is a reminder to myself, because the way that you clicked on this video because you were interested in the topic title is the same thoughts that I have every day too. I still compare myself. I still wonder why I haven't figured it out. It's just this difference between the rational and the logical brain versus the irrational and the illogical brain. And it's a constant battle. But if this resource can help you feel like you're still doing okay in and amongst the chaos while you're figuring it out, then I'm pretty happy with that. So that brings us to our community questions segment of the Solo Ep. Just one question for you today that I really, really liked. And that was, how can I stop comparing myself to my friends? Pretty simple question. I feel like we've addressed this throughout the episode, but I want to leave you with what I think the right answer to that question is. Now, I think the answer is threefold. There are three key things that I would do to compare myself less to my friends, because I think, look, we're always going to compare. All of us are chronically online. We are always going to see things that we want and that we wish we had that we don't have. But the three key things that I would focus on and that I have been focusing on, firstly, social media. Who are you following? Who can you cull? And I want to be blunt about this because I think this is the quickest and easiest way to reduce the amount that you compare yourself. Only follow people who, when you look at their life, you don't feel that sense of comparison. It's okay to follow accounts that you aspire to work towards, but they should motivate you, not demotivate you. When you follow a travel account, that should inspire your next trip, not make you feel sad for not traveling right now. So go through your following list and figure out who are the individuals, influencers, businesses that you follow that whenever you see their content, you feel like you're behind in life. Unfollow them. Why do you still follow them? If someone treats you like shit, are you going to continue to see that person? Probably not. So why would you still follow an account that makes you feel like shit? So that would be the first. Cull accounts that don't make you feel good or that lead to this idea of comparison. Keep the accounts that motivate you to continue to move forward and progress and strive for new experiences. And then the second point of that is, and I know this is thrown around so much, but this idea of gratitude is super important to remove or reduce comparison to other people. At the end of the day, and this is an innate practice for me now, I do it without thinking, and it took me some time to get there. Shout out to Cooper Chapman here, the 1% Good Club. Cooper has done 3 things that he's grateful for every day for at least the last 2.5 years. Every single day he posted onto his story. And I started on that journey with him and was posting it and writing it down every day. And after about 6 months, it became a habit that I just think I don't have to write it down anymore. But this idea of gratitude is so important. If you look at your day, it is so easy for one bad moment to make you think you had a bad day. But realistically, most days we do a few good things. It's really important at the end of the day to compare those good things against the bad things. Some days suck. Some days are shit. Shit things happen. It's okay. Some days are awful. But even on those bad days, I'm sure you can find at least 3 moments that made you smile, felt good, or pushed you towards a better future for yourself. Try as hard as you can every day to think, what are the 3 things today that I'm grateful for? And I mean that in the least cliche way possible. This truly changes your thinking. If you have something to be grateful about yesterday, then you have something to look forward to today, because you know the things that make you happy. So focus on gratitude. That's the second point. The third point is to focus on your own growth markers. And this goes back to the point of milestones. It's okay and it's important to set goals and have milestones, but see them as growth markers. Set growth markers instead of setting specific accomplishments. So for instance, what do I mean by that? If I look at Bali, and I set my milestone at 25 to be living out of home overseas, and now I've left Bali and come back home to be with my parents again, then I would consider that a failure. But if I'd set a growth marker that said, by 25, I want to have at least tried living out of home, then in this case, just because I'm back at home doesn't mean that I haven't achieved that. I tried the thing. I grew in that way. And now I've got the knowledge and experience to back the decision that I make next. So set growth markers and look at your life from a sense of, am I growing? Am I evolving? Am I progressing towards a version of myself that I think I would like? So look, I think that gives you and me a pretty good idea of this concept of figuring it out and how we can reframe it so that we don't feel so bad about ourselves all the time, constantly comparing to other people. And like I said, this is as much a reminder for me as it is for you guys. The point is, I just try to remind yourself that everyone is on their own path. You are living your own life with your own unique experiences, upbringing, and goals and dreams. And that's okay. You're gonna do things at different times. You're going to beat people to some milestones and be well behind them on others. And just remind yourself that it's okay. You're figuring it out. That's what life is, figuring it out. You will never figure it all out. I promise you that. Don't quote me on it. I'm sure we'll get to 80 and say the exact same things that we're saying now about life and figuring things out. And sure, by that point, we will have figured a little bit more out, but there's still plenty of questions we'll have. Life continues to evolve and change, and we have to be okay with and accept the fact that life is a journey. It's about taking steps towards a version of ourselves that we think we're going to be happy with. And if that changes, that changes. And it's okay to pivot and go with it. So I want to leave you guys with that. Now, before we wrap up, an update on the book. I heard back from a publisher and they wanted me to make a few changes to add a bit of credibility to the book, which I understand because at the end of the day, who the fuck am I? So I made a few of those changes and I've submitted the new manuscript to the publisher to get a review on that. And fingers crossed, they like it and we might be able to get this thing published. If not, self-publishing is still an option. So I'm just going to take it as it comes. Publishers are slow to get back, so it might be a little while before we hear anything. But so far, so good. I'm hopeful. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope I've answered some of your questions on this topic. And as always, keep your eyes peeled for Monday's Instagram story, where you get the choice, or the chance, I should say, where you get the chance to drop in any questions you've got about the topic of the week and support me in creating these episodes for you. Also, if there's any guests you want me to interview or someone you'd love me to sit down with and have a chat with and share online, please let me know. Send me a message on Instagram or comment on the episode or YouTube or wherever you're viewing this. The Instagram is @UncleNathanCo. Other than that, thanks for tuning in and see you next week.